Live onto the course, 97.2 kilometres to go here on stage 5 of the Giro. Thankfully, the roads are dry. Let's go straight to the breakaway. There are 11 men out there in the break. After around 60 kilometres, they had 4 minutes and 15 seconds. That grew out to 5 minutes, 10 kilometres later. At the moment, with control in the peloton being exercised by Orica Green Edge, who have the pink jersey for themselves, and Michael Matthews, and everybody else, the gap has been down to around 3.5 minutes. Waiting for the latest time check. I can tell you who's out there then. Andron Giocattoli have Marco Frapporti in the break. Elia Viviani, one of the big sprinters in the race for Cannondale. Colombia have Rubiano in his second break of this Giro d'Italia. Colombian champion, of course. Garmin Sharp with 2 riders there. One of 3 teams with 2 riders, in fact. Tyler Farrar, another sprinter, going for those points, not getting as many as he wanted. Fabian Wegman, a former king of the mountains on the Giro d'Italia, out there as well for Garmin. Lotto, another of those teams with 2 riders out, and 2 sprinters as well. Kenny de Haas and Tosh van der Sande. Neri Sottoli, as ever, with brake presence. That's Jonathan Monsalve, the Venezuelan rider. 2 riders for Europe car, sprinter Tony Urel and Bjorn Thural, the classics man, with Team Sky having Ben Swift out there. Remember, he has taken the points, the maximum 10 points at the intermediate sprint. And we're heading up to the first of 3 climbs, the Valico San Serra di San Chirico, and then 2 passages of the finish line, the second of which will be our end of stage today. So they get 2 looks at this climb. Final climb that will present a few difficulties. Sean Kelly, as ever, is alongside me as we pass through San Brancato. Sean, we've had 24 hours to reflect on what happened yesterday. After sleeping on it and thinking about it in the cold of day, was it the right decision?
Well, actually, I didn't sleep well last night. I was so nervous. It was the good decision. I think we got proof of that in the end when the roads got wet again. The reports this morning, there were anything from 20-25 riders came down. We didn't see that. It's hard to believe there was that many, but again, behind, we didn't have the TV shots. We were concentrating up front more so on the sprint, of course, but it was like an ice ring, and everybody was saying that it was like riding on glass. That's what Nicholas Roche described it as. And we could see that final sprint, the way the guys were going around the corner. Mezgec and Bohani, they were sliding the last corner. You know, magnificent bike control just to hold it upright, but unfortunately for a lot, they went down and sliding down. It would have been, you know, chaos. It would have been carnage if they had raced on that in the final. And thank God, I think the decision was made that they would just, you know, neutralise it as far as possible. And the ones who wanted to make it, wanted to take the risk, the sprinters, they went ahead and done that, and we see the consequences.
Fingers crossed for no bad weather today. We have an interesting course lined up in front of us. 3 climbs. We have points as well. And of course, at the minute, the virtual standing with this breakout there on the road is Ben Swift in the pink and the red jersey. Very surprised if they get to the end today, Sean, because there are 3 climbs coming up. Yes, it's a strong break, an 11-man break, a strange composition of a break, if you like, because you've got 3 teams with 2 men in it each. You've also got quite a lot of sprinters in there. It's a bizarre sort of break. You can understand why the sprinters went for those intermediate sprint points, and the red jersey's certainly up for grabs now with Marcel Kittel out the race, who retired yesterday, but it's going to be a big job for anybody to get the end, because those climbs are going to make it hard, and there's going to be a selection. In the meantime, we have problems at the back of the peloton. Matteo Robottini with a front wheel change. Robottini is the leader, of course, of Neri Sottoli, former king of the mountains in this race. You can see the flat tyre right at the front there, and a quick wheel change required. He's lucky because the chase is being more controlled than being really put on at the minute. 94.5 kilometres to go. 3 minutes and 45 is the...
And coming down.
And coming down, yes. 250, not so far, yeah. Not so far ago.
Yes, 250, the reporting race radio. And the breakaway, a strong group of riders, 11 riders, but interesting to see that a lot of sprinters up there, and we know why, because the intermediate sprint, quite a lot of points going for that points jersey, the red jersey, and we could see they're hotly contested with Swift taking maximum points. I think Ben Swift was a little bit peed off yesterday about the stage, because he didn't really want to race. I see some reports there saying that, you know, he didn't fancy racing, and I think a little bit up for today, try and get maximum, and he's got that. And of course, this finish today, it's going to be difficult for the real sprinters to get up there because it is a difficult climb, and the final number of kilometres, 8% in the end, and that is going to be a difficult one for any of the sprinters. Although Michael Matthews is talking about going for the stage today, he said he's climbing better than he is sprinting, so we'll have to wait and see. And if he gets up there today and do something in the stage or holds on to the pink jersey, it will be a great performance from him.
Well, we have to depend to see how it's raced, of course, today, who gets involved, who doesn't. It's interesting to try and pick a winner today because the very, very early part of a 3-week race, a lot of people still have jobs to do for riders who are protecting the GC. As we see a bit of a slowing in the pace at the minute in the peloton. It was below 3 minutes, the gap now up to 3:20 again. And of course, well, there we go. It's very, very interesting to see what will happen today. Perhaps they've knocked off the chase a little. A lot of terrain to come, a lot of climbing to come, and the most important thing for Orica Green Edge will be to control the race today, not just for Matthew's stage win, but of course to try and hand on to the pink as well. If he doesn't win the stage, he wants to keep that pink jersey. A lot of riders, a lot of different types of riders could win this today. It's quite an open parcours, and again, if it were a one-day race, you'd be really calling lots and lots of names on this sheet out. But remember, a lot of those are going to have jobs to do for their team leaders still. Yukiya Arashiro, a man who's been climbing and sprinting well, very, very well in the Ardennes. One to watch out for Europe Cup. Androni Giocattoli will really want to attack the stage. There was Manuel Belletti at the back. Good to see him riding on. Bernie Eisel directing things at the front, just as he was yesterday. Sean was saying, of course, that Ben Swift perhaps didn't fancy it yesterday. Certainly understand why, and we saw Bernie Eisel, his road captain, doing a lot of negotiating on his behalf during that effort yesterday. We're off for a quick break. See you in a minute on Eurosport Cycling, stage 5 here at the Tour of Italy. You're watching Eurosport Cycling. 90 kilometres remain of stage 5 of the Giro d'Italia. Dry roads for the minute. Blue sky as well. It is very much welcome. A lot of wind though. Look at those jerseys ruffling in the wind. 3 minutes and 22 is the gap at the minute. It seems to be being well controlled by Michael Matthews' team, Orica Green Edge. Sky running just behind them. Ben Swift in the breakaway. Gave you an erroneous bit of information before the break. He's not in the virtual points jersey. He's certainly in the virtual pink. Elia Viviani will be the man at the moment as it stands in the virtual points jersey. Swifty on the road at the minute, 21 seconds in the lead from Elia Viviani. Again, expect all that to change as we go in today. It's a strong group though. Looking at the profile today, Sean, if you were the team of Michael Matthews and Orica Green Edge, Matthews says he wants to win today, although on paper it looks a very, very tough, hard ask for him. You're the director sportif there. How long do you want to leave this breakaway out today?
Well, first of all, as a director sportif, I prefer less men in the breakaway. I'd like to have less wind also. It's going to be a demanding day for Orica Green Edge because with the windy conditions, 11 men in the break, it's going to be the hardest day for them to control. They're really going to be pushed here, and I think they're putting in a big effort to keep this one under control. As we see, it came under 3 minutes then. It's 3:25 at the moment, and it was quite a lot more. And I think in the end this 11-man group will really push on, so they will have to work hard at it, and that will mean for Michael Matthews maybe some of the Orica Green Edge riders that he would be hoping to have on the climb with him in the end, they might not be able to stay there. So it is going to be one of the more difficult days for Matthews to control the pink jersey here, but again we'll have to wait and see. I think he is going to come down because they're controlling the situation, and the first mountain finish, and it's an 8-kilometre climb. Everybody is going to be waiting to see how they feel. How is the legs feeling after the difficult start in Belfast, Dublin, the rainy conditions? How is your climbing legs? Because they've really had flat days all the time from the start of this Giro, so it's going to be a little bit of a tester for a lot of people. And sometimes when we get the first mountain top finish, everybody's waiting for the other ones to make the move, and we could see somebody who is not really one of the big favourites having a go and holding off here today. But Michael Matthews is talking about doing something at this stage and holding on to his pink jersey.
It's going to be very, very difficult for him. We've just seen the gap go up quite exponentially again to 3:43. A lot of riders en masse on that bridge we passed at the minute. Taking a comfort break as we go back to have a look at the local boy. Domenico Pozzovivo goes through his hometown today. Expect him to have a go on the end as well. Not just because of where we are, but the terrain also suits him on the final climb as well. The famous cycling son of Basilicata. He loves his home region so much that he actually wrote his university thesis on it. Politics in the south and its relation to the economic impact in Italy. Economics degree for Domenico Pozzovivo, who races for AG de Serra, the French team, despite being a rider from the south of Italy. Breakaway on the left-hand side here, peloton on the right, as you can see, being controlled by Michael Matthews' team. There is Michael Matthews himself. Biggest test so far of his team's ability to control the race. Third day in pink on what is his first Giro d'Italia. Interesting to see whether it is realistic for him to win today. All depends, as Sean said, who gets involved, what happens. The favourites should watch each other, but you never know. Got to watch the wallets as well, actually. A long fine list again, as we've had throughout this Giro d'Italia inside the communiqué at the end of the stage yesterday. The commissaires seem to be cracking down on just about everything. I don't know if there's a financial crisis in the UCI and they need the money from the fines or what, but Cameron Meyer fined 100 Swiss francs for, let's say, taking a comfort break when he shouldn't have done. 200 Swiss francs for the driver of the Française des Jeux car and all of his antics towards the end of the stage yesterday, Martial Gaillan, who is the director sportif. And Team Sky, well, they're a bit naughty because they didn't turn up for the presentation for the Super Team by Points prize, which they currently lead at the minute. All prize money withheld. Any extra prizes withheld from the local organisers as well, and 200 Swiss francs as a fine. They're certainly not being lenient this Giro d'Italia, are they?
Certainly not. Right from the start we've seen the fines have been dished out quite strongly. For Sky, of course, yesterday we see the conditions in the end, the presentation, it takes quite a time. We see in the earlier days back in Ireland, it goes on for a long time, and it goes down to this team classifications, and there's so many classifications here, it takes a long time to get through them. So I think Sky said, well, we need to get the riders back out of the way here. And to something we talked about as well, the riders waiting around. When you get wet in the end, you're hanging about. The risk of getting a chill, getting a cold, catching fever, that I think they're going to be concerned about. And we did, yesterday we lost the big sprinter of the race, Kittel, because of, I think, of the conditions in the earlier days. Money well spent, I think. Marcel Gaillan, he played it well yesterday because he did a lot of towing or pacing Bohani and the other teammates, and made it that bit easier for them to get in there, winning the stage. He'll not be concerned about the 200 Swiss franc and getting a stage victory, getting a lot of prize money, but just the exposure and the publicity for the team to win a stage in the Giro, huge for FDJ. Huge for Française des Jeux, huge for French cycling. Believe it or not, Bohani's win yesterday was the first French win on the Giro in 3 years. Jean Gadret, the last of those. I remember being there, interviewed the guy at the end of the day, and we all thought that he would go on to bigger and better things in the Giro d'Italia. It hasn't happened for him. 2011. This, by the way, Bohani's 6th individual UCI victory this year. As you see, Rigoberto Urán hanging out the back of the peloton at the minute, but with his team in tow. And if that's happening, Sean, you can tell there's not too much going on up at the front. No, I think the wind conditions, it seemed to be blowing at the intermediate sprint in all directions. Maybe it's settled down now because they're in the valley a bit here, so if it's a headwind, well, then you can afford to sit further back in the peloton. And Rigoberto Urán, we know he sits around the rear end a lot. He likes just to sit back there and relax a bit, and you can do that at times, but he has a number of Omega Pharma quick step riders with him, and if they need to correct the situation, if they need to move up, I think he's well covered there. And you know the direction of the race. The director sportif will be making you aware of that, so it looks like that the wind conditions are not going to cause a problem here. Otherwise, I don't think we would see the general classification men hanging that far back. Rigoberto Urán 9th at the moment on the general classification, the best place for the big favourites. Here's Nairo Quintana, the big favourite going into the race, you feel.
second at the Tour de France last year. A little disappointed, I think, that he wasn't allowed to go back to the Tour this year, but this really is the race that really suits him on the Grand Tours. Certainly as a climber. That brutal final week of the Giro d'Italia, if he's fit and healthy and on form, it could be carnage for the rest of them against him. It's been a big year for him off the bike as well. He actually became a father a few months back in February. Still lives a lot of his time in Colombia. When he's in Europe, he's in Navarra, in the north of Spain, very close to the Movistar team headquarters. And we're with Nicola Bohm. Oh, rider on the floor. Well, Yukiya Arashiro has taken a little bit of skin off in that most sensitive of areas. 84.6 k's to go. And we said right at the top of the transmission today that Basilicata, although one of the lesser known regions, was mountainous, and we're seeing illustration of that here. Now Michael Matthews lead the overall young riders standing. Just ahead of Luke Durbridge, who's looking after the white jersey for him at the minute, given the fact that Matthews has got pink on. Julien Vermotte in third, Yannick Eisen and Rafa Majka. Look out for Majka. Very, very involved in that white jersey fight a year ago. Fifth at the minute. Standing by points, well, this is confirmation of what we told you a moment ago when we finally corrected ourselves. Elia Viviani first, just 4 points ahead of Nasser Bouhanni. Giacomo Nizzolo, Roberto Ferrari and Ben Swift making up the top five. It is a list of sprinters at the moment. Martin Cialinghi is the only infiltrator in there because he's been out in a couple of breaks. Only one intermediate sprint per stage in this Giro d'Italia. Overall climber standings with Martin Cialinghi leading that at the minute. Should be in the lead at the end of the day, but just to watch out for Miguel Angel Rubiano, fourth. Only on 2 points, so 10 points behind the Dutchman. He's in the break though today, and there are quite a few points up for grabs, 13 in total, with another 3 on the line. Have to get to the end to take all those, of course, though. Orica Green Edge, the quickest of the teams. No surprise, really. That's almost in the order that we had the team time trial in. 19 seconds they lead over Omega Pharma Quickstep. Giant Shimano, ahead of Cannondale, Trek, Francaise Desjeux and Sky. Sky winning the team prize yesterday for the stage in terms of the points, hence their little fine for not turning up. This is the break. Ben Swift there, 199, the Yorkshireman. It's been a good day so far for him. Coming through next to him, Fabian Weckburn, the German. And those snazzy new helmets and glasses that the Garmin team are wearing this year. Jonathan Monsalve, one of those who almost missed out on being at the Giro d'Italia thanks to visa problems. And this is Patrick Gretch. Good signing for Agi Dosert. We mentioned it on team time trial day. On the left-hand side of him, Enrico Gasparotto. If he can hang on, he'd be a very, very interesting man at the end of things here today. Gasparotto. All depends on if the climbers and the uphill men really want to have a good go. All smiles at the moment as we look down on those mountains of Basilicata. Keep it Eurosport Cycling, keep it the Giro d'Italia. We'll see you in a minute. "81 kilometres remain, stage 5 of the Giro. Gap's been allowed to go out again to 4 minutes and 6 seconds. They had a maximum of around 5 minutes. A few of you asking why we mentioned that Nairo Quintana isn't expected to be at the Tour de France this year. Certainly not to be there as the leader. That is the plan for Movistar. They want Alejandro Valverde to have a go at that. If he performs this Giro, stays fit, you never know. He might get picked in the team, but he is not planned to be the leader. That was decided right at the start of the season by his team Movistar. Thanks for getting in touch. Thanks for asking those questions. We want to hear more, of course. All day you can ask Sean your questions. Hashtag any tweets to us, Eurosport Cycling, or tweet direct here to the commentary box at Rob Hatch TV. Our daily viewing of Luca Paolini in conversation. He's back to his normal habitat at the back of the bunch today, Sean.
Yes, he is. We've seen him a lot there. But again, he's a rider when he's needed, when the time arrives that he has to be in the front to do the work for the teammates. He's always there, and you know, the experience, and he's still got the form, because we did see him, you know, in the last days hanging around a lot, but in the end appealing to the front at the right moment when he's badly needed, and he's been doing that a lot in the races. And if you look back at I think it was Milan-San Remo this year, he looked to be frozen. He was putting hot tea on his hands, and I thought it was game over for him, but in the very end he was there after getting over the Poggio in the sprint. He did a magnificent job for the race winner, and that's where experience comes in, and you also have got to have the legs, of course, and he still is able to perform at the top level.
Good afternoon to Mr. Boots, Michele Scarponi, riding for Astana this year after spending a couple of years at Lampre. Former Androni Giocattoli man as well. Loves the Giro d'Italia, comes back year after year. It is his 3-week race. Inside 80Ks today. It's going to be an interesting final 15 kilometres or so. We have a lap around this town of Viggiano, where we await in the hills of Basilicata. Basilicata situated right in the south of Italy, underneath the sole of the boot, if you like, in between Puglia and the southwestern region of Calabria. It's actually where the Tyrrhenian Sea meets the Ionian Sea. This is our breakaway today. Frapporti of Androni, Rubiano, the Colombian champion, Wegman, Viviani, Farah, De Haas, alongside Van der Sande, Hurel, Swift, Monsalve and Turao. Strong break, and as you mentioned, Sean, perhaps a few more many men than those chasing would have wanted to have in the break today. Strong set of rouleurs as well. In fact, all these riders, well, half of them at least, are sprinters. Frapporti, probably the man to try and stay with Belletti in the sprints in this one. But today, they're all about Domenico Pozzovivo. The fans from this area, going to ride through his hometown. Will he have a go at the end? That's the question. Pozzovivo not really expected to be a contender at the end of the full 3 weeks, certainly for the podium. He'll be looking at least at the top 10 though, won't he, Sean?
Well, I think the top 10 is possible, depending on what way he performs in the final week. If you're really good shape and you can come into the final week not too far off in the general classification, if you can hold yourself up there, a guy like Pozzovivo, if he's at 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, well then he could do a lot of damage in these mountain top finishes, the mountain stage. He could pull back that very quickly. So a place on the podium is not certainly out of reach for him, but again, we'll have to wait and see what way he gets to the final week. The time trial, of course, as well will be an important one. How much time will he limit his losses there to? That is going to be the question. But if he can get to the final week in a good position, well then I think a top 5 is very, very attainable.
Always has been the problem for Pozzovivo, time trialling ever since he exploded onto the scene. Bling Matthews says he wants to win today. How realistic is it? That's the question. Again, it's not always about parkour, is it, though, in racing, Sean? It's about how races are taken to that parkour and who sets the tone on the front. Yes,
it certainly is, and depending on how well they attack the climb today. And we have this final climb, but let's not forget we have to we have to climb in the end. We have the 2 climbs, so it's going to be interesting. One, will they start really racing in the penultimate climb of the day, or will they wait for the final one? Because Viggiano, we have to climb up there the first time round, and that is another difficult climb. So if they really race aggressively in the end, it's hard to see that we could see some of them good sprinters in there. So we'll have to see in what way they go about it. And it looks like the breakaway is working quite well. Is there a situation now where Green Edge are just leaving it hang out there, and are they hoping that he gets some support from other teams, because they are the only team at the moment who is riding, and I'm sure they're saying, and the director sportive is definitely looking for support from some of the other big favourites here to put a man or two in from the teams to control the situation, because it is going to be a long, difficult day for one team alone to control the situation.
Brian's written in to think that Uran is going to have a go today. Do you think that's going to be the case, or the big favourites going to leave this well alone and, as you maybe suggested, just mark each other out of it?
Well, I think the big favourites, if it comes down to the final 2-3 kilometres and they're all together, well then we could see some of the big favourites having a go. You know, you're not going to lose anything there by having to go. It's earlier on when you get onto the climb, and with 7 kilometres to go, if you start attacking then and you get into difficulty, you could lose a lot of time. So if there's a group of big favourites, maybe 25-30 riders together, and then we could see a guy like Uran and some of the other ones as well as Scarponi. He's never afraid to go on the attack. So if you get into that final 2 kilometres, 2.5 kilometres all together, well then we could see some of the big favourites having a go there, because they know they're into the zone then where, you know, having a go, they're not going to risk anything, losing out big time in the general classification.
All about making sure that they don't overcook it and lose things today. Svein Tuft, our first Maglia Rosa of this Giro d'Italia, riding on the front, back doing his day job now for Orica Green Edge. This is the break. Ryan has written to say he can see the breakaway sticking out there. Agree with that, Sean?
Difficult to see, although you know, it looked like that they were going to, you know, keep a cap on it at around the 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes, and that's grown out again. But still, with 75 kilometres to go, I don't see it allowed to be allowed. Although with Green Edge, you know, they might start saying, well, if we just, you know, knock it back a bit and allow this breakaway to get an advantage, where the other team starts saying, oh, this is getting dangerous now, maybe the 11 men, some of them can stay out there in the end, and then they start getting help from the other teams, and that could be the tactic as well, because the way it's looking at the moment, possibly Green Edge are trying to play that tactic, you know. If the teams start to panic and they say, well, it's getting into the danger zone, then we could see some other teams contributing to the pace setting on the front.
Well, one thing that is certain, as we see Cameron Meyer all bands up from the other day, is that Orica Green Edge won't be short in confidence. They won the team time trial. They've had the pink jersey since the start with 2 different wearers. They've already achieved what they came to achieve at the Giro d'Italia so far. Anything else for them in the rest of the race is a bonus. 75 k's to go. Wooded area in the valley here in Basilicata, heading into the province of Matera. Potenza, the other province in Basilicata. Of course, the coastline right along the bottom as well. One of the least inhabited regions of Italy too. Extremely traditional in places as well, as we saw in Puglia yesterday. Just less than 75 k's to go then, on stage 5 of this Giro. A very warm welcome back. Fighting for pink on the way into Viggiano today. Day 5 of that fight for pink. Time to go back to the car. Lots of riders from Cannondale who might be thinking of having a shot today. Can the likes of Moser hang on? Can the likes of Gatto hang on? Even Daniele Rato, a lot of talk about him. That was Viviani, the sprinter, going back to talk to the team car. Of course, as long as we don't have any big sprinters hanging on to win the stage at the end, then he'll be in the red jersey. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Halfway through that phrase, my heart sank, Sean. More rain, more bad weather. We said partly cloudy with a possibility of rain, sorry, and you can just see on this camera. What I'm worried about here, and I know what you're worried about, is we talked about it before we came on air. There are 7 big hairpins on the descent from the finish line. This, by the way, is the final kilometre as we're looking at it, but it's not really that I'm worried about it. It's the descent before we climb again. Yes. The wind as well.
And we can see the wind is, yes, blowing very strong here, just ripping the publicity banners off the barriers here. But the descent is going to be a concern, and you know, we have seen in the route manual that the descent is very, very technical. With the wet conditions, that is going to make everybody again, you know, really, really nervous, and that will have a big bearing on the first time up the climb, because I think everybody will want to be in a good position to get onto the descent, and that will, you know, push the pace up a lot. But it's not looking good at the moment. If we're going to have a wet descent again, it's going to be nervous times for everybody.
Nervous times for everybody indeed. That's the drive to the finish, the last kilometre anyway. And it's just like it was in Belfast. The sun's out after 2 minutes after the rain. Seems as though we've exported the weather to southern Italy. It's not really May weather down here in Italy at the minute. After my mum, there's nobody I love as much as Pozzo Vivo. There you go. One way to support your heroes. They're passionate about supporting them down here as well. Umbrellas out.
And it's not looking good. The background we can see there, it's very, very cloudy, very dark, and hopefully that is only a shower, that it can dry out before we get onto this, because otherwise it will be a very important one for everybody, and a dangerous one also.
Dangerous one also, and of course this is a completely different kettle of fish from yesterday. It's not as if they can neutralise the race as they did yesterday to look after their safety. The race is already on here. Very, very difficult to control. They're not used to rain down here. It's not stopping them getting out there on the side of the road. So the town painted pink in Viggiano.
Well, they like a shower here. They get out in it, and
it's because they don't see it very often.
It's something special to have a rain shower, so they get out.
Back to the breakaway. Rubiano at the front, hoping to try and take the points on the first climb here. First climb coming up in around 7 kilometres or so. Climb up to Valico di Serra San Chirico. But at the moment the cloud's interfering with our pictures, I'm afraid. 3 1/4 hours of racing have been done. Still quite a long way to go today. A lot of racing as well. I can tell you the race really is on, and the weather's so localised that it's not raining at 450 metres to go. No, but it's coming down the finish line.
Yes, we can see that depending on what way the camera is looking out at the finish area. One area is a blue sky, and the other side is a dark cloud there, so it's a very localised shower, and hopefully it will blow off before we get to the finishing area.
Now a novelty for you. Let's go to the Tour of California. Rewind a few days. This is John Degenkolb, and UCI and Brian Cookson, new president, have allowed cameras on bikes in this race. Shimano, of Giant Shimano, have put a camera on the bike, front and back, as you can see, of John Degenkolb. And we're about to see the sprint he did against Mark Cavendish. Listen to this. Going in behind, of course, a Megaphone, a quick-step train against the Giant train. And once the sprints launch, you can see Sagan, Cavendish, into the final few hundred metres. Degenkolb was obviously led out. Cavendish getting there first, though. Just on the right-hand side, as you can see, looking round, Degenkolb beaten. That's a different view of a sprint, Sean. Would you like to see that in every race?
Yes, I think it's something different for the viewers. You can see a lot of movement in the sprint, and we could hear a lot of shouting there. Degenkolb was saying, go, go, go. So it gives people a bit more of an insight of the situation in the sprint, and you can see the rate they're going, the way they're just going down that finishing straight, 55 plus kilometers an hour certainly. It's amazing, the speed they can get up at in full sprint.
It's very grey over San Chirico. Again, a bit of break-up in our helicopter pictures. Fabian Wegmann. It's been a very good ride on the Giro d'Italia down the years. Wegmann, King of the Mountains, exactly 10 years ago here. There's Rubiano, delivering his first Team Columbia win in Cartagena when he won that national champions jersey. Excellently sported. Viggiano in the green there, the Italian sprinter. Again, rather like Ben Swift, much better on the road now. He's finally concentrated on the road. Second Giro for Viviani, and Ben Swift, the 26-year-old from Yorkshire, there in the black for Sky. Tosh van der Sande, the man to accompany and back up Kenny de Haas in the sprints. Both of them are in the break here. Under 70 kilometres to go. Distance and the break really isn't moving. Before the real action starts, we'll go off and take another commercial break. 68.4 k's to go. We're all a little worried about this final descent at the minute. Raining at the finish line. Fine out there on the course, which is good to see. Riders very much appreciating it. It's like they turned on the taps upstairs as soon as the Giro started again this year. The same last year, except a heck of a lot worse with the freezing temperatures and spring not really arriving in Europe until we got to summer. Spring bypassed us in 2013. Real car with Tony Urel there. Had a surprise and a very good second place finish on one of the stages in the Tour de Romandie. It was stage 2 the other week, in fact. Second stage that was won by Michele Albasini. Urel, the Frenchman. Wegman just behind him. See the luminous yellow right in the middle of that of the Venezuelan rider, 24-year-old Jonathan Monsalve. One of the ever-growing Armada Latina at this Giro. More Latin American presence than ever in the history of this race, by the way, this year. Even though this is his Giro debut, the talented Venezuelan climber said that he'd like to have a go at the mountains classification. So if we get to those King of the Mountains points just down the road in about 2 and 3 kilometers now, expect Rubiano and Wegman to have a bit of a challenge. Former Androni Giocattoli rider now with Neri Sottoli. He's had 25 days of competition in his legs coming into this Giro d'Italia, and a former stage winner of the Baby Giro back in 2010. Back with the group here. Let's look at where we are on today's route. Started out in Taranto, 18 meters above sea level. On our way to the first climb of the day, and Sean, we're ready for what is on paper the hardest climb we've had so far, the only real climb. It's a third category climb. Yes, and I think normal situation, this climb, it wouldn't be a contested big time by the bunch. But with the conditions, and they've been well aware of the conditions, possible a wet descent, that will change things totally. The normal would be the final climb. That's where all the action would be seen. So we could see, you know, teams pushing on, wanting to stretch out the peloton on this penultimate climb, and get the peloton lined out, which takes the danger out, because if you climb slowly, well, then you bring a lot of riders to the top, and there's more riders on the descent. They can, start passing the riders who are not comfortable, and so with the way it's looking at the moment, we could see a little bit of a difference, and that will of course make it difficult. If you go hard on the earlier climb, well, then the final climb up to the finish is going to be a bit more difficult. At the moment, 3:32, the advantage, quite a strong advantage for the breakaway. And just as you mentioned, some of these riders here in this breakaway are very good climbers, so if you allow them to hang out for the final climb with 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes advantage, you could find some of those guys difficult to close down in the end, and they could give us a surprise, maybe hang out there for a long time. Each and every one of the teams looking after their riders, and as you mentioned, Sean, as soon as there's work to be done, Luca Paolini comes to the front. At the minute, it's Cameron Meyer doing the work for Michael Matthews and Orica Greenedge, keeping him out of trouble. Nairo Quintana to the front as well. Nicholas Roach is up there, as is Rigoberto Urán and Michele Scarponi. Cadel Evans and BMC. Steve Morabito, as ever, is guardian angel on the course. 67 k's to go. We've climbed up from the valley of the Agri River, biggest river in the region, in fact. Up a hilly region and into the mountains now. King of the Mountains will be at Valico di Serra San Chirico, very close to the holidays resort of San Chirico Reparo. 3 minutes and 34. We've seen Arashiro at the back there. He's got a hole in his shorts. It's because he's been on the ground. Only crash to report today, certainly the only one we've heard of. 195 riders to the start this morning, by the way. We've lost 3 so far. Marcel Kittel yesterday couldn't start because he was ill. And of course that horrible first day, the nasty crash that took out Dan Martin, one of the pre-race favourites, alongside Coldo Fernandez de la Rea. Kenny de Haas on your picture, and this is Marco Frapporti. Probably the man to stay close to Manuel Belletti if he feels fit enough to sprint when we get back on the flat again. The next pure big sprinters, there'll be Foligno, and this is a start now of 2 or 3 days that are all above 200 kilometres. Tomorrow we've got a very long day indeed, one of the longest of the Giro at 247 kilometres, and the first time that they throw a few not quite serious alpine climbs in, but climbs that are hard enough to put the sprinters and everybody else in trouble. This is where attitudes start to change a little, Sean, in a stage race.
Yes, I think we will see a totally different final today than we've had in the past days of this Giro, with a mountaintop finish. Tomorrow again we have another uphill finish, not you know, the big difficult ones, but we will see maybe some of the guys we're expecting to do well in the general classification. We might see them losing a bit of time, so we could see who's maybe not going to get on the podium and win this Giro, but we're not going to certainly see who's going to win the Giro. It's too early in this, and of course, yeah, the sprinters, they're going to have a little bit of a difficulty in the next number of days, and then back to the flatter terrain again, where we will see the sprinters performing. And it's normal for a Giro. I think we seem to get some difficult stages in the earlier part, and it's a good thing, I think, for the race, because if you have maybe 9-10 days totally pan flat, and then you're in the general classification rider, you arrive in the climbs after being on the flat, big gears, it's a shock to the system. So not having too many days with some little climbs thrown in earlier, it's a nice combination, a nice mixture.
All depends on how it's raced towards the end. There's quite a lot of names that, looking down at my sheet and the list of the riders we have, really do jump out at me. But then you have to start thinking, who's going to be involved riding for a team leader here? Because not everybody's going to have the freedom to go out. I'm thinking Stefano Pirazzi, today and tomorrow, is going to have a go. Surely always does. Enrico Battaglini, his teammate as well. We've talked about Pozzo Vivo. Can Gasparotto hang on? Will he be allowed the freedom to have a go? The likes of Capecchi and Amador at Movistar, who will be looking after Quintana. Ulissi, a big, strong rider, and Lamprey seem to have this trident of different leaders, so perhaps they might allow one of their men out. Simon Geske for Giant Shimano. Peter Veining, you imagine, is going to be doing a lot of work for the like of Michael Matthews, who says he wants to win today. Wout Poels or Simone Ponzi. There's so many names that jump out at you. It's just very, very difficult to predict this early, Sean, given the fact that everybody still has a job to do and most teams are still in the fight for the final prize.
Yes, very difficult to pick out a winner today. There's so many riders in there, you know, could win the stage today. Pelazzotti is another one who is in there. Depending on what way the race goes, I think that's going to have a big bearing on the result at the end. If they race very aggressively in the final 20 kilometres, 25 kilometres, where it all kicks off, well then we will see, you know, more the general classification men. But if they ride a controlled race, at the moment 340 advantage, you know, if they allow the breakaway of 11 men to stay out there for a long time, well then it's going to be Ulrika Greenedge who are going to continue our riding. We get to the final climb, and then it's a situation, I think, that we have more men capable of coming into the stage end with the ideas and with the possibility of taking a stage victory.
Marco Fraporti in the white goes out to try and take some King of the Mountains points. Chasing him at the minute for Team Europcar, we have Bjorn Thural. Just behind him, Jonathan Monsalve. Still a bit of a way to go to the top here. There is Monsalve in the bright yellow. He's the best climber in this group, no doubt about that. And he's the man who, in a pre-race interview, said he would be targeting the King of the Mountains jersey. Viggiano, who's also got 2 points. He's going to have a go here. Could end up mathematically with the jersey today. So it's certainly up to him to have a real go. Fraporti it is in the white, blue, and all those different Androni Giocattoli sponsors plastered all over the jersey. Got the best sales team in the world, I think, that team. All the different sponsors they have on. It's a question of how many you can fit on the cycling jersey. Behind him, Neri Sottoli in the bright yellow. Started out life this year as Yellow Flow after last year's problem. 1 kilometre to go until the top of the first climb of the day. First Italian climb of this Giro d'Italia. As you can see, fantastic scenery all around from those city walls. Viva il Giro is the message. No time for these riders to celebrate the Italian race at the minute. It's all about serious racing now. Fabian Wegmann, a former King of the Mountains at the Giro d'Italia in the blue, makes his way up into the top 3. Several hundred metres to go. Bjorn Turao in the dark green. Just behind him, you have the Venezuelan rider, Monsalve, riding for the Italian team. Third place in the blue, German, former King of the Mountains of the Giro, Wegman. Fourth in line there, Viggiano, Colombian champion, already with a couple of points in the standings for the King of the Mountains. Another of those hairpins. Gradient isn't too steep here. Certainly not the hardest climb of this Giro d'Italia. Third category, though, 7 points for the man who crosses the line first. Turao. Monsalve in a perfect position to attack here. Turao knows that, looks behind, makes the Venezuelan come through and do the work. And here comes the effort. It's a decent one. Tosh van der Sande. Monsalve straight onto it, though. This is perfect for the Venezuelan climber at the minute. Wegman well positioned, as is Viggiano. Lotto with both riders out there. Rouleur stroke fast men. And here it is. Turao on the left-hand side is going to lead this out. Viggiano is the man crouched, hands down, right on the drops at the minute. Out on the pedals on the right-hand side in the luminous yellow is Monsalve. It's going to be between these four. Three lots of points up for grabs. Turao in the dark green, 150 metres to go. Monsalve on the right-hand side. Is it steep enough for Monsalve to outsprint them here? Viggiano is the man who is in front at the minute. I wish that car would get out the way. It is Viggiano who's going to go over. He's going to take the maximum points. A very good start of the day for him, with Monsalve in second from Venezuela, Wegman in third, and the fourth place man being Bjorn Turao. 7, 4, 2 and 1. They all take the points. Developing into, even though we haven't had too much climbing, an interesting competition, this King of the Mountains lot.
Yes, and you could see that they were really having a go for their a kilometre out. They were starting, to look at each other, play the tactics, and they really, sprinted full out. It's not the same situation sometimes in the breakaway. Guys are not interested in it, but you could see a number of the guys wanted to get the maximum points there.
Under 65 k's to go. Spots of rain on the camera close to the course now. And the peloton won't be feeling good. Now, we had microphones on that sprint we saw from John Degenkolb not so long ago. I think they'd need the little bleep machines here, because there'll be a lot of cursing and swearing going on with these first spots of rain coming down.
Yes, they certainly will. We can see it's just getting come down a bit more than spots at the moment, and it's not looking nice at all for this descent. Hopefully that they can get down without any problems, because if they do really start to push on, as we've seen yesterday, when it's a little bit wet here, it's so slippery. Even on the uphill, you can see the way they're going around here. I think they're a little bit nervous, so you can imagine on the downhill it is going to be nervous times just to get down, to get onto the final climb of the day.
Well, just to reiterate what we said yesterday, as we see Capecchi on the left-hand side for Movistar, it's very different when it rains down here in the south of Italy. People saying, well, it was raining in Ireland, what was the problem then? Well, in Ireland it rains most days, as you will testify, Sean. It is very different. The roads get washed out up there. No rubbish on the road. Here you've got oil, muck, dirt that doesn't get washed off for 1, 2 or 3 months at a time sometimes. It stays on the road, it gets very slippy, and the conditions are very, very dangerous indeed. The weather's really changing now, and it's filling in over the back, you can see. Those nerves are starting to jangle.
And talking about the wet conditions in Ireland, we heard Michael Matthews yesterday in the interview. I think he said, it always rains in Ireland, which is a correct quote.
Edwin Avila right at the back there. He won't have seen as much rain as he's seen in Ireland, being from Colombia, certainly not of the cold nature. Oh, dear, oh dear, oh dear. Always very dangerous. Carrying too many of those jackets, trying to take them back to the car. We saw it the other day, thankfully nothing happened when they were going very, very fast into Dublin. That was Maxim Belkov. You can hear the cameraman here as we see the passage of the peloton, 3 minutes exactly behind over that first classified climb of the day. Still a decent gap then for the 11 men out there. Again, been thinking about the composition of this break ever since it went out this morning. There's a couple of teams that you'd have expected to do a bit of chasing early on today, as we see confirmation that Viggiano took 7 points upon me, Monsalve 4 and Wegman 2. That's how it stands after the first King of the Mountains of stage 5. But you'd have expected teams like Bardiani and Belkin to really try and get a man in the break today.
Yes, you would expect more of the teams to be in it, but again, it can be difficult to get into the break because a lot of people with the same idea and a lot of attacks in the earlier part. So sometimes it's so aggressive in the earlier part of the race, not easy to make the break at all. Back in Dublin, it was pretty straightforward. They seemed to be left away pretty easy, but other times it's a bit of a battle to make it into the breakaway of the day.
It's a shame. We were really hoping to see that yesterday. Thanks to James for writing in saying yesterday it wasn't raining. The problem is the roads were wet, James. The roads were very, very slippy, and I think you saw that on the last lap. Remember, we want to hear anything that you wish to contribute to our coverage. Join the conversation on Twitter @RobHatchTV. Hashtag your tweets, Eurosport Cycling. A few riders very, very wary already on the descent. From Yuki Beppu looking back towards the team car as well there. .6 kilometers to go. Descending all the way down to around 500 meters above sea level. Going to climb up to 948 meters in Viggiano. 2 King of the Mountain points to come. They're both 4th category climbs. The first of them will come after they've gone through the finish line for the first time at the top of the town of Viggiano. Then they'll descend this descent that we're a little worried about, certainly if it keeps raining. 7 hairpin bends, quite technical. And a few worries, whispers in the commentary box before today about how it would go if it rained. After that, pardon me, we've got another King of the Mountains sets of points to be given away right on the finish line itself. Once again, a 4th category climb. The group has come back together now on the descent. Miguel Angel Viggiano taking 7 more points. He's now within 3 points of the blue jersey wearer, the King of the Mountains jersey wearer, Martin Cilingi at the moment. Orica Green Edge controlling. Thankfully the sun is out, but as you can see, spots on the lens as well. Really have to hope that the weather improves. This is the point, Sean, in the Giro where we're normally enjoying good weather when we come to the south and worrying about how much snow's left in the mountains.
Yes, well, I think we'll be not worrying about the conditions here normally, but unfortunately, yes, a bad number of days here in the rainy conditions. And how long is this going to go on? And we've seen last year the conditions, there were atrocious conditions right through the Giro, and we've seen in the big mountain stages at the moment there's still a lot of snow up there, but you know, 1 metre, 2 metres of snow on the roadside is not a problem. If you get dry conditions, you know, it can be quite good. Of course, when you get up to the top of these very high altitude climbs, it's going to be cold up there. But the problem is for biking, when you get wet and you're out there in the wet conditions all day, and then the temperatures, you know, start getting real low as you get up to the altitude, it gets so cold. And the danger of you know, the conditions here, the crashes, that's what everybody's worried about, because down here in the southern part of Italy, the road's just not washed off enough with the rain, and it's already worrying times in the beginning of a big tour. The first number of days, they're always nervous, and there's always a lot of crashes because everybody wants to ride in the front, but throw in the wet conditions in this area of Italy, it makes it so much more dangerous.
3 minutes and 5. Fabian Wegman there. Orica Green Edge, still with Ivan Santaromita, resplendent in his Italian champions jersey. Durbridge in the white, Matthews in the pink. Not many of the team colours are getting shown off in this Giro so far. Quite a few Irish fans getting in touch with us and talking up Nico Roach today. Interesting to see whether the GC boys are going to come together and have a go. You feel that he's gone fairly well so far in this Giro d'Italia. Early days still. Watch these lines. Rain jackets on. Number 42 there on your picture was Jetse Bol, who crashed yesterday, remember? He was one of the victims of that big crash in the final couple of corners. And of course, when you have been down, Sean, it affects your confidence.
Yes, when you slide out, as there was many riders slide out yesterday, and Jetse Bol, he took a heavy fall. I think he slided off and crashed into the barriers. And it does take a little bit of time to get your confidence back. Unless you're a Bohani, I think there's not many riders, you know, that can come out the next day and push on the descents. And we can see there the results of Jetse Bol. He's just really being careful today. Doesn't want to go down once again.
Nobody wants to go down. The gap being kept down to 3 minutes and 1 second. Really hasn't moved too much ever since the end of the climb. Of course, we are strictly descending at the minute, but it's certainly not all downhill road. Still very undulating in the extremely green and well-wooded hills of Basilicata here. As I said early on, 47% of Basilicata are mountains, 45% hills, and just 8% on the flat. One flat plain, very close to the Mediterranean Sea. Marco Frapporti, part of this Androni team, who are charged with the task of lighting up the Giro d'Italia. Coppa Italia winners. 2 minutes and 7 down, Frapporti. Today we'll be looking for the likes of maybe Pellizotti, as Sean suggested. Johnny Hogeland had his birthday yesterday. No birthdays in the peloton today. And 195 riders out there. Luca Paolini with his eggshell of a helmet on the top. Really had the Mickey taken out of him for that last year from his good friend Pippo Pozzato, who's not at the Giro this year. A little disappointed to be left out, I think. Would have liked to have ridden for Lampre. Lampre coming with Cunego, Ulissi and Niemetz, who we talked about. Roberto Ferrari, their sprint man. And the rest of the team built around those objectives. And the Italian flag flies high. It's not always the case down here, or in any region of Italy. Italy's still a very young country. Just 154 years old as a unified entity. And national pride, not always in evidence. Often regional sentiments get the better of the national thought. We said it was windy out there. There's the evidence. 35 kilometers per hour in places. How's it looking for Michael Matthews, Sean? What chances does he have of staying in pink tonight?
Well, if you believe what he talked about yesterday after the stage, I see the interviews, he was hoping to get up there on the stage today and have a go for stage victory. If you're talking about stage victory, well then he should be able to stay close and to the other general classification men. If he's not going to win the stage, he should not be too far off, but it's a big call, and I'm really looking forward to see what he can do. If he gets through today, well then, you know, the confidence will take a big boost, and tomorrow is going to be a more difficult final, but you know, he will really put in a big battle, but we have to get today out of the way first of all, and I think that's the way he will be thinking as well. See what he can do today and then decide what he can do for the coming days. But if he can win the stage today, that for me would be a very, very good performance, considering so many riders we talked about here you know, are going to try and go for the stage victory. The general classification men might hold off, but there's some very, very good climbers, very good uphill finishers here who are a little bit out of general classification, the important positions in general classification, let's call them, but they are really going to give it a go here if it all comes back together, and it looks very much the case that is going to be the way it's going to pan out at the final today.
Ben Swift there at the back for Team Sky. 26 years of age. He's shared his career between the track and the road so far and has had some pretty nasty injuries as well. This is the year where he's finally settled down as far as that's concerned. On his way to San Pietro there. Could be a classic Italian image, couldn't it? Hilltop town with a little church in the middle, overlooking a spectacular view. It's almost cliched at times, but the whole country really does look like that. And it's both a natural and a well man-made monument lying on a bit of earth in the south of Europe is Italy. It is absolutely spectacular. San Pietro. Cobbled square, looking over the hills around this Agri Valley. Back with Ben Swift, who goes to talk to the Sky Director Sportif and the team car. Let's avoid Marco Frapporti for that moment, shall we, because he's having a personal moment. Ben Swift now 26. Podium in San Remo, remember, and whatever happens in the Giro, with that great stage win in the Basque Country, finally a bit of consistency in his racing, better luck, no injuries. He's looking really good talent, is Ben Swift, isn't he now?
Yes, a huge talent, and you know, already this year he has had some great performances. The year is, you know, good already, but I think in this Giro we'll see more of him, and you know, he's a talent that he can get all the climbs as well. To be there in the final of a Milan-San Remo, you have to get all the small climbs quite strong, because we know the way they ride up the Poggio, the Cipressa in the end of San Remo, and you know, to get on the podium there was a great performance. So a stage like today, if the Breakaway was allowed to hold out there, although there is some, you know, very strong company in this Breakaway who probably are better climbers, but still I think we will see him. Not surprised if he, you know, if he get a stage victory out of this race before the end, if he goes to the end. But in the next number of days, I think he will be very much up there, and to see him in the Breakaway, that proves that he's feeling good at the moment.
Feeling very good as we see Sebastian Shabonneau, who did a good job for Nasser Bouhanni in the rain yesterday. Both he and Murilo Fischer, the main guardians of Nasser Bouhanni as he goes into the sprints in this race. I was talking about Ben Swift. It's perhaps a very disappointing thing for him that he's finally racing well, but the Tour is going to be in his native Yorkshire, and we know how Sky pick Grand Tour teams, don't we? He's not likely to be in that team, is he? They're going to be thinking about the leader and just winning the overall, aren't they?
Well, yes, you would expect that they'll be all about the overall. But again, you know, Sky, we've talked a lot about that, the way they're performing this year. Some of the riders maybe not performing as well as we'd be expecting, but yeah, there's a long time to the start of the Tour of France.
Jonathan Castroviejo, Spanish and Basque time trialist, just changing your front wheel there. A little more strung out now on the lower reaches of this climb, and the gap's starting to come down now. 2 minutes and 42. The road's looking a little wider, a little better, and a notable change of pace, Sean.
Yes, it's coming down, and it doesn't look like that they're really pushing on out front. We can see Ulrika Greenedge with a number of the riders you know, making the descent here, but not taking any risk at all. We see them going around the corners, they're having a look over their shoulder. The man in front, whoever's leading the pack, he just have a glance over his shoulder, see everything is okay. But it's still starting to come down, and you know, with the distance we have to the finish, it looks like that the Breakaway is not going to have a chance to stay on at all in the final. It did look for a moment there they were going to allow it to grow out, and they did allow it to grow over 3.5 minutes, but it's slowly starting to come back in again.
Ulrika Greenedge riding well together. They've been so successful in races recently. Tour of Turkey, young Adam Yates, what a win that was for the man from Bury. Simon Gerrans we saw in Liège, Albacidi in Tour de Romandie, here with Tuft, the team time trial, and Michael Matthews. Nothing can go wrong for them at the minute as we get our first glimpse of Nicolas Roach, Dario Cataldo as well. Cataldo not racing through his home region on the east of Italy at the moment, from Abruzzo. Giro avoiding staying through there too much. He goes up the west coast, really, into the mountains before finishing in Trieste, marking the anniversary of the annexation of Trieste back into Italy after a long period when it was under the control of the Allies after the war. Still with Jetsabol at the back here. Now to the breakaway. At the moment, it looks as though the rain's eased off a little, which is always good news. 2:36, the gap continues to come down. Marco Frapporti. Break is actually climbing slightly again. Frapporti at the front, Tosh van der Sande behind him. Tony Urel in third place before Ben Swift and Bjorn Thorau. Monsalve and Viggiano have just gone quiet in that group after their little exertions. Right back to the back of things. Nathan Haas, who's still recovering from that shoulder injury. Number 96 there. There's Tom de Kent as well. Belgian rider who's been on the podium in this race a couple of years ago, remember? Now riding for Megafarm, quick step. Putting his hand up, needing a little bit of attention and wanted to go back to the team car. Nicolo Ruffoni, with all of that right arm full of kinesiology tape. Getting a glimpse as well of the Austrian champions jersey of Ricardo Zeudel, another of those riders who were actually prepared for this race by going to Romandy in Switzerland. And it's all pretty calm at the minute in the Maglia Rosa group. We're waiting for things to happen today. Waiting for the first real dig out. Whilst we do wait for that, we'll go off and see some advertisements. Sean and I will be back with you in just a couple of minutes' time.